the, the contingency plans that we're putting in place. We just wanted to provide an update that as we move towards the end of this financial year, revenues continue as at this point in time to remain strong, and we're actually tracking ahead of our second supplementary estimates as at this point in time. The Taxation Jamaica is going to announce officially later today that the last date to file income tax is supposed to be on Monday, the 16th of March. Given the dislocation that this event or the news of the COVID virus is causing, the Taxation Jamaica will move that date down, and they'll announce that officially. I believe the new date will be moving from let me not wait for their official announcement, I should put it that way. So we're going to move the date from Monday, the 12th, giving people a few more days without penalty to actually get their returns in. We still advise persons, if you can make it today, make it tomorrow, make it Monday, to actually get it done. But there will be a few more days that will be available for persons to file and to file. In the meeting this morning, we'd have had persons, as I mentioned, from the Manufacturers and Exporters Association and representatives of the distributive trade. And we were updated that inventories remain strong, and so there's no need to panic. The large sort of players in that industry, in the manufacturing and distribution space, report that they have 3 months of inventory for major items of food and other essential supplies. So there's no need to panic. There's adequate inventory. I would have discussed in my budget debate that with the historic, I use that word, pay down of debt, or the acceleration of debt that we plan to make later this year, we have created a certain amount of fiscal space, and we reserve 7 billion of that fiscal space to be able to respond in a counter-cyclical fashion to the potential effects of this virus. We intend to be very surgical with that response. It's a response that will require parliamentary approval, so we'd have to go back, certainly if it's on the expenditure side, we'll have to go back to Parliament and present what we plan to do. And so we are listening to all sectors and all people all businesses that are likely to be impacted, and considering the range of responses that we're able to make. The good news is that Jamaica has policy options that we are considering, and ones that, should it even deteriorate beyond expectations, there are other things that we can do as well. We are particularly sensitive to the impact that this is likely to have in the short term, at least, on the hotels and restaurants and attraction businesses. And we are very mindful of the fact that these sectors employ a lot of persons, and one of our main efforts will be to do whatever we can to keep employment at robust levels. But we're considering a range of options and as we dialogue with the representatives of these various sectors. The Bank of Jamaica was able to reassure members that the Bank of Jamaica stands ready to respond as well. Reserves in the central bank are sufficient, and reserves actually, the Bank of Jamaica has buffers for times exactly like this, where they may need to step in if there are shocks to the system and to supply that would warrant their intervention. The Bank of Jamaica will, at a later date, speak for itself But suffice to say, as Minister of Finance, the policy options available to the central bank are equally varied and wide, and there's no need for any fear in that regard. Some members expressed that liquidity in the system, in the security dealers sector, and other areas of the financial economy. That is something that the governor would have reassured those present in the meeting this morning, that measures remain available to ensure that liquidity remains robust within the system. And of course, the government on the fiscal side has implemented fiscal stimulus, which will take effect on the 1st of April for some of the measures. Others are effective for filing in March 20th, in particular the MSME tax credit. And we expect that this fiscal stimulus, which couldn't really come at a better time, returning $18 billion to the Jamaican economy, will help to some extent with the potential the impact of this global health crisis on domestic economic activity. We will, as the Prime Minister mentioned, use this modality, or an online modality, as he mentioned, to ensure that the country is kept updated on our responses. Certainly, as far as the economic front is concerned, I'll make myself available to ensure that we keep the country updated. But we want everyone to know that the capacity exists on the fiscal side and on the monetary side to do what we need to do to respond to this crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Clark. Just to reinforce what was said, the capacity exists to carry us through this phase of the crisis and after. And from what I've seen and the reports I have seen, I think that we are in good standing, having made what I consider to be very good economic choices earlier on, that has placed us in a position to be able to respond. Of course, it's always very tricky, and we have to be very careful now with the policy choices we make going forward. And that is why we have assembled a broad group of advisors so that we make the right economic decisions. Tourism, obviously, is something that we have to be very careful with, because this present crisis affects travel in a significant way. It affects supply chains in a significant way as well. There are two other matters that I would want to use this opportunity to bring the nation up to date on. The first is that I have now settled with the Ministry of Education that as of tomorrow, schools will be officially closed for a period of 14 days. We will review this decision after 10 days. But I believe we have given notice. Tomorrow would have been a low turnout day anyway, as was today. Parents would now have Saturday and Sunday to make further preparations for their children, and that would give us time as well to complete our preparations to ensure that those schools who would not have internet connectivity, that they could receive materials to distribute to students so that they can continue their education at home. I think we have done as best as we can in this matter, and the Permanent Secretary is here. If there are other updates needed, she is available to make the appointments. Oh, and we are also joined by Minister of State Alanda Terrelong. The other announcement I want to make is that the Heart Trust NSTA, that is the new name, the National Service and Training Agency has also advised that after reviewing their own situation and without any objections from me, in fact, my agreement and endorsement, that they will close with immediate effect. So that means effectively tomorrow. All their community-based training program and all their HOPE training programs. So those will remain closed for the same 14 days to be reviewed after 10. In other words, we will update the public after 10 whether or not it will be extended. All right, so those are my updates. One other update I would want to. Okay, one other update. I believe that I'm not certain we have any officials here from the Ministry of Health. I'm not seeing any officials, but we had given yesterday the flight detail for patient 0. That is the first confirmed patient who was on the British Airways aircraft. And today we have gotten the confirmed details for the patient number 1, which would be the second confirmed case. And let me just, so that I don't make any errors, let me just read from my notes here. In keeping with our commitment to keep the public informed and to apply all reasonable measures to contain the spread of the virus, the government of Jamaica is in the process of contacting passengers who were on board a flight with a person who has been confirmed with COVID-19 within 14 days of having landed in Jamaica. Using the flight manifest, we are therefore contacting all persons who came in on flight AA 1515, that is American Airlines 1515, from Miami to Montego Bay, on which patient 1 was a passenger on March 7th, 2020. However, to expedite the process and to take into account any incomplete information on the manifest, we are hereby asking all persons who were on that flight to contact the Ministry of Health at 888-1-LOVE. Now, let me just say something about that. That line has been experiencing several hundreds, if not thousands of calls, and it can be frustrating. So what we have done at the back end is to bring in additional capacity through a call center to help us to handle all the calls coming in, because what you're having are people who don't need to call are also calling in. So you're having prank calls and you're having check calls, and then you have legitimate calls going in. So we have increased the capacity, and that will come into effect very shortly. We hear the complaints and we're trying to respond as quickly as possible. I've been given other numbers by the Ministry of Health. I will allow the Ministry of Health to distribute those numbers, but specifically for those persons who were on the flight, who were asking to self-identify, if they can't get through on the number, then they should email us at COVID-19, that is COVID-19 at moh.gov.jm. Let me repeat. COVID-19, one word, that is COVID-19 at MOH, that is the domain name, that is the acronym for Ministry of Health, .gov.jm, so that we can know what is your status and how to contact you. And I will also use the opportunity, based upon some feedback that we have gotten, that there are persons who may feel ill, they may have symptoms, and they are trying to make their way to the hospitals. The better advice would be to stay put and then make contact so that we can advise you as to the best route and the best way and the best facility to go to. We really all must exercise great care in this situation. I know a lot of people are going to panic. There is no need for panic. Follow the instructions that are given, think smartly, act wisely, and we will contain this virus.
So I just have the official note from Tax Administration Jamaica, and I just read it here, that Tax Administration Jamaica wishes to advise all income tax filers that a decision has been taken to extend the income tax filing deadline to Wednesday, March 25th, 2020. This means that companies, partnerships, self-employed persons, and employed persons with other sources of income will now have until March 25th, 2020 to file their income tax returns for the 2019 filing period and estimated returns for 2020. The tax authority has taken the decision to extend the income tax filing deadline after careful deliberations in light of the COVID-19 confirmed cases in the island. The decision is being informed by the government of Jamaica's posture that on the situation to safeguard staff and members of the public, and will continue to be guided by the GOJ's established guidelines. The public is reminded that they may file and pay online using the TAJ's online portal, www.jamaica.gov.jm. For further information, the public is advised to call the Tax Administration Customer Care Center at 888-TAX-HELP, 888-TAX-HELP, or to visit the website www.jamaicatax.gov.jm. This is a release from Taxation Administration Jamaica, which I'm just helping to accelerate to get out to the public by reading it here into the press conference. Thank you.
All right, thanks. Thank you, Minister. We'll take just a few questions because the ministers here all have to report to Parliament. Today is a Parliament day, and there is a presentation by the opposition spokesperson, and we want to be able to have that start as quickly as possible. So if there are any questions, we'll take a few.
All right, Mr. Prime Minister, thank you so much. Members of the media, you may raise your hand. When you're presented with a mic, please, if you could, just identify yourself, your media entity, and then ask your question succinctly. Dashan at the back, I recognize you. Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister.
Dashan Hendricks, identify yourself.
My name is Dashan Hendricks, and I'm from Radio Jamaica Limited. Last night at the press briefing, after I spoke with the Education Minister, and he told me in an interview that the government would take the decision to close schools for 14 days if local transmission is detected. Now that you have announced that the schools will be closed off tomorrow, are you saying inadvertent that local transmission has been detected so far?
Did anyone hear me say that? No. And I'm not saying that directly or inadvertently, but just out of an abundance of caution. The truth is that the right thing to do is to close the schools because, you know, it is one of the areas of gathering over which we will have very limited control. You're asking children to exercise a higher level of hygiene and caution, which they're not all, you know, prepared or capable to do. And therefore, you have to consider other situations. Some schools don't have regular water supply and all kinds of other issues. So it is in the public's interest to do this. The challenge that we were having why we didn't announce it earlier was we needed to have given parents some time to make preparation, and therefore we felt that they would have had yesterday. Some parents are already making preparations today, then they would have had the weekend. So our initial contemplation was definitely if we had community transmission, then of course we would have to do it. But in advance of that, and the truth is that as we do the contact tracings and we identify the places where the confirmed cases were, and we have given the information about the travel, how they got here, the possibility, the probability is that you will likely to see other such cases. We are hoping, but we will be prepared.
Thank you, Prime Minister. A quick follow-up,
Yeah, just a
Deshan?
quick follow-up. Another thing, our preparations, the measures in place to continue the lessons for these students.
Yes,
via,
yes. Permanent Secretary and Minister, if you...
let me just finish the question as well. And the results for the 5 tests that should come back today as well.
Just as a protocol, when it comes to dealing with the public health matters, I would prefer that the Ministry of Health addresses those issues first before I speak on them. So I couldn't answer those questions, that particular question.
PS, Minister, if you could.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Our Permanent Secretary is with me. Just to indicate that all our regional directors have in fact met with the board chairmen and principals of our schools. As indicated, we will be making provisions to enable online training or continued education online. Tomorrow we start training 180 teachers in our online platform so that they will be able to give lessons online. In particular, as relates to our PEP students, we do understand that there's an exam, that there is an examination that is upcoming. So certainly all our PEP examinations, workbook, practice activities, those are all available on our website at the Ministry of Education and Youth to enable us to continue with education. We would implore all parents at this time, while children are home, that they make sure that they are suitably supervised. So we do not wish for any child to be left unsupervised. And I don't just mean in terms of doing education, doing their schoolwork and practicing papers online, but in terms of their general health and well-being. We'll also be sending out physical booklets, hard copies of different work material, so that those students who do not have readily internet access, that they can also be able to do their practice. We have been in contact with Flow, and Flow will also be making internet availability readily accessible to persons on our platform so that they can continue with their education. And we will continue to monitor the situation. We'll continue to be guided by the Office of the Prime Minister and also by the Ministry of Health in this matter. But again, to reiterate what our Prime Minister has in fact indicated, we're asking all Jamaicans not to cause panic, just to be calm as we get through this together. It is one Jamaica for all Jamaicans, and fear-mongering and mass hysteria and fake news will only serve to be disruptive to our society.
Thank you, Minister. I see several hands. We have a limited time. I recognize Ms. Clark at the back, and I see 2 other hands as well.
All right, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Brittany Clark, Nationwide News. All right, so my question is a 2-part question. Firstly, does the closure of schools include university campuses? And secondly, is it effective tomorrow or effective Monday? And is it 14 consecutive days or 14 school days?
You know, that's why we really need the press to ask these kinds of questions to fully get the understanding. So, no, it does not include universities. The truth is that the universities have a different scheme of management legally, and it would really be, we have left it so far up to the discretion of the universities. Some universities have already started to make their decisions, and we would endorse and support if they made decisions to move online or to close. It is 14 days starting tomorrow, so therefore the notice for closure is in effect tomorrow.
But just to indicate also that the teachers' colleges, however, teachers' colleges and community colleges, they are in fact a part of the closure notice effective tomorrow for 14 days, along with all early childhood institutions.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Minister, or next...
14 consecutive days. So 14 days starting tomorrow, and then we will update you 10 days from tomorrow. All right, so just to be clear now, teachers' colleges, community colleges, secondary schools, note that HEART has not closed their training institutions. They will come back to me with their perspective on that, but what they have closed is their community-based training, and all the HOPE program training that is going on. Those will be closed, and all infant schools, primary schools and basic schools will be closed.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
You don't have to count all the
Very
days.
good.
I mean,
So just to ensure that they're very clear, sir. All right, our next question from the Gleaner. Go ahead, Liver.
Liver and Barrett from the Gleaner Company. Minister Clark, you said you had discussions with members of the trade, distributors, manufacturers, and so on, and they have assured you that there is enough supplies to last us for three months, you said. There are reports of a run on items used in the sanitation process. What assurances have you gotten from the trade in relation to those items?
Yeah. So, you want to go over that one?
Thank you. We just had a meeting today with members of our chemical distributive trade in relation to their stock supplies. Clearly, unfortunately, there has been some panic buying, and we advise against it. It's not necessary. Clearly, if everybody goes out, there will be a temporary shortage. What we can say is that the materials to make sanitizer, we do have sufficient quantities. Both of our producers locally, FP and Island Products, have said they're going to ramp up production. In fact, Island Products have committed to move from an 8-hour workday to a 12-hour workday so that they can have enough out there. The other thing that I think is important for people to recognize is that there are alternatives. Yes, we've gotten used to hand sanitizer as a convenient option, but we do have sufficient alternatives, whether it be bleach, whether it be antibacterial soap. Part of what we will be doing, we have charged our Consumer Affairs Commission to put out some of those alternatives to the marketplace starting today so that people can know when they go, and if they don't see the product they're looking for on the shelf, what's the next best option. But one, we expect to see a rise in the production of things like disinfectant, hand sanitizers, but also in terms of alternatives, we're sufficiently supplied.
Thank you, Minister. Our next question, Neville. If you could.
Naomi, you seem very liberal.
Yes, very. I know we have just a few more minutes. Those were the two hands identified ahead, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Prime Minister. To Minister Clark, you spoke yesterday about a $7 billion contingency fund, $2 billion of which have been released already to the Ministry of Health. Yes?
The 2 billion of which we speak, that's just a different...
Different one, okay. The closure of the schools and the ramping up of technology and so on is not without its cost. What is the contingency in that regard?
Okay, so we have adequate, as far as this financial year is concerned, as I indicated earlier, we have space to accommodate increased costs for the remaining days of this financial year, if those should materialize. And as we move into the next financial year, normally in crises like these, I don't think you've heard in the past that before the expenditures materialize, the government saying that there were a contingency of $7 billion available. Clearly, beyond the $7 billion, we also have scope. But we're saying up front, communicating to the country that we have that capacity that we can deploy through a supplementary process to contain any expenditures that we may need to exercise. And, we have the best economics team that, I'm a little biased, but we have Governor Richard Biles. We have the Director General of the Planning Institute, Dr. Wayne Henry. We have Senior Deputy Financial Secretary, Courtney Williams, who just returned from 3 years with the International Monetary Fund in Washington, D.C., and has a lot of experience. And, we, in our meeting this morning, we were joined by veteran former Director General of the PIOJ, former Financial Secretary, Dr. Wesley Hughes. So, we have a first-rate economics team. And we have
Minister Clark.
we are, ensuring that we're not needing to react by being prepared, by being, ensuring that we have the contingencies in place on the fiscal side, on the monetary side. We're looking at various scenarios and how those scenarios could unfold. and we have plans in place, you know, depending on which of the scenarios, you know, unfolds. So Jamaica, you know, as compared to where we would have been in the past, Jamaica is in a much stronger position relatively to handle crises of this nature.
Minister, thank you. I'm sure the members of the media would appreciate that the ministers and the Prime Minister must make it to Parliament. Just before we go to the Prime Minister, this is a matter of public concern. We have a lot of people on social media asking questions as well. I'll just encapsulate two. Minister Terrelong, they really want to know if the PEP exam scheduled for next week will still be on. And Prime Minister, many persons online are asking about work and whether or not work should continue to go on as well. If you could just address those.
All right, well, PS, you wanted to grab that?
Okay, thank you, Prime Minister. Just to advise that we are currently reviewing the schedule for PEP. The ministry has the capacity to postpone this assessment and to make a determination later depending on the number of days that the students are going to be out. So we will assess after the next 14 days, and based on what happened then we will or may take a decision for the postponement of the assessments to take place in April. We are committed, however, to ensuring that whatever happens, that the students will get an opportunity to sit, and in cases where they are not able to sit all 3 sets of papers, we have already done 1, and we have their grade 5 assessments that could also be utilized in this specific case.
I don't want to cover too much in one press conference, because obviously we would have come prepared to answer certain questions and to deliver certain sets of information. As it relates to the issue as to whether or not work should go on, I suspect you're saying whether or not the public sector and the private sector should continue. And my answer to you is absolutely yes. The economy must continue. I mean, unless we reach a situation where there is unabated spread. But let me just be clear. We are not in a situation of unabated spread. We are in the second phase of the crisis. The first phase being it is happening around us and we were trying to delay its arrival. This phase it is here, and what we can confirm is imported. And therefore we are trying now to trace from the confirmed imported case to a zone around the imported cases, and then we're trying to contain it within that case. The third phase is if there is community spread, to try and flatten. That's a term they are using in the thinking around it, because you're going to see an increase that will go like this, and then it will peak, and then it will come down. That's a normal trend for the infections. What the government is trying to do by acting early is to not allow this to happen, maybe this peak and then peter out. And we are trying to ensure that whatever peak that may occur is within the capacity of the health system. Now, just to be clear, the government is trying, but the government alone can't do it, because we don't know what every single individual is doing. So someone may, out of panic, feel some tightness in their chest, or they are coughing, and they say, you know what, I have to run, go to the doctor. They jump on a taxi, everyone in that taxi now. Then they go into the waiting area, everyone in that waiting area. So we have to be smart. So instead of running, try and get through to the Ministry of Health, let us know, and then we have a duty now to respond to you. If we work together in this smart way, we can very much limit what is happening and ensure that we don't have a crisis in provision of health service, because that is where the crisis could be, and that is what we are trying to avoid. So having said that, we will come back to you again with more information on what we are doing regarding the provision of water. We will have another press conference like this that will deal with all the utilities, specifically water, electricity, and broadband internet. Because as children stay home and businesses move online, we need to be sure that we have the capacity. So I will be with Minister Williams, who is here, Minister of Science, Energy and Technology, just arrived. We will be having our dialogue with that sector. I see the head of JPS here. We will be speaking with JPS to make sure that there is no fallout in electricity because increased demand, children are at home for the next 14 days. And then definitely the concern about water and trucking of water. So we may not be able to do that press conference tomorrow, but certainly on Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our press conference for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, just an update. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will have its press conference at 3 o'clock right here in the banquet hall. So if you could please remain, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade will have its press conference right here in the banquet hall in 30 minutes.